What happened behind palace doors involving Princess Anne may reveal more about the current state of the monarchy than any official statement ever could. She was quietly given one of the most powerful titles in the British monarchy, but there was no press conference, no public announcement, and no carefully prepared statement from palace officials. Instead, there was a late-night meeting, sealed documents, and a king who appeared determined to settle important matters before anyone outside those walls knew what was happening. The deeper you look into what happened, the clearer it becomes that this was never just about a title. There was a reason for the timing, a reason for the secrecy, and a reason Princess Anne was the one leaving that private meeting with an honor the monarchy had not granted in a very long time. Here's what has been reported. According to sources familiar with palace operations, King Charles invited Anne to a private audience that never appeared on the official schedule. That alone makes the meeting highly unusual. Buckingham Palace is known for its strict organization, where engagements are carefully planned, logged, coordinated, and managed through multiple layers of staff. So when a meeting takes place completely off the record, with senior aides reportedly asked to leave the hallway beforehand, it does not look like a simple scheduling mistake. It suggests a deliberate effort to keep the discussion private. Those who described the atmosphere inside the palace that evening said Charles appeared exhausted, but completely certain of his decision. That combination says a lot. It is the kind of resolve that comes after someone has wrestled with a difficult choice for a long time and finally reached a conclusion. Whatever was contained in those documents, it seems Charles had already made up his mind before Anne entered the room. To understand why this moment carried so much weight, you also have to understand Princess Anne's place within the royal family. She has always stood apart from the rest. While other members of the monarchy have faced years of public controversies, family tensions, and constant media attention, Anne has continued doing what she has always done, showing up, carrying out her duties, and never seeming too concerned about whether anyone is watching. By the time 2023 came to an end, Princess Anne had completed an astonishing 457 royal engagements, even more than King Charles himself. She has maintained that relentless pace since her teenage years and has never really stepped away from royal duty. Many people describe the British monarchy as an institution driven by appearances, and in some cases, that criticism has been hard to ignore. Anne has long been the exception. Her reputation comes from consistent hard work rather than carefully managed publicity, and those inside the royal family know it. Her relationship with Charles also runs much deeper than ordinary sibling loyalty. Growing up only 2 years apart, while their parents were often away on royal duties, they relied on one another in ways that shaped the close partnership they still share today. That connection has never disappeared. Anne is widely known as one of the very few people in Charles's inner circle willing to speak honestly. Even when her views may not be what he wants to hear, she offers genuine advice, challenges him when necessary, and earns a level of trust that very few people around a monarch ever achieve. When Charles appointed her gold stick-in-waiting at his coronation, many saw it as little more than a ceremonial honor, but those familiar with how he operates viewed it as something much more meaningful. It was a clear public display of confidence in his sister. The Princess Royal Regent designation now appears to elevate that confidence to an even greater level. Sir Timothy Lawrence also deserves attention because his role has quietly become more important than many people recognize. For nearly 3 decades, he has remained almost invisible by royal standards. As Anne's husband and a former naval officer, he has built a reputation for being calm, respectful, and consistently avoiding the spotlight. In a royal family where even smaller stories can dominate headlines, that level of restraint stands out. It has been a deliberate part of how he has carried himself throughout his years in the household. He never received a princely title after marrying Anne and has never taken on a formal royal position. Instead, he has spent decades standing just behind his wife, supporting her without complaint, never seeking attention for himself. King Charles's recent decision to award Sir Timothy Lawrence the Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order immediately caught the attention of royal watchers. The honor is especially significant because it is given personally by the monarch, rather than through the government, making it a direct expression of the king's trust and appreciation. The group of people who hold this distinction includes some of the monarchy's most senior figures. While the award does not make Timothy a working royal or give him constitutional authority, it carries symbolic weight. It quietly recognizes years of loyalty from someone who has consistently supported the royal family without seeking attention. The timing also stands out. The number of working royals is smaller than it has been in years. King Charles has continued carrying out duties while managing his health publicly. Catherine has spent extended time away from public engagements during her recovery, and both Harry and Andrew are no longer active working royals. That has left a much smaller group handling the monarchy's day-to-day responsibilities, with Princess Anne playing one of the most important roles. By honoring both Anne and Sir Timothy, Charles appears to be reinforcing the people who have remained dependable during a demanding period for the royal family. There is also a long personal history connecting many of the people around the throne today. Before Camilla became queen, she was married to Andrew Parker Bowles. Years earlier, Andrew and Princess Anne had reportedly shared a genuine romantic relationship during the early 1970s. Their relationship eventually came to an end, largely because royal rules at the time made marriage between a Protestant princess and a Catholic unlikely. Andrew later married Camilla Shand in 1973, while Charles had already developed deep feelings for Camilla before royal duty, and the pressures of the crown ultimately pulled them apart. The lives of Charles, Camilla, Anne, and Andrew Parker Bowles ultimately took very different paths from where they first seemed to be heading. Camilla married Andrew, Charles eventually married Diana, and Anne married Olympic equestrian Mark Phillips during that same period. Four people shared a complicated emotional history before ending up in completely different places. That history never truly disappeared. It was simply buried beneath decades of royal events, public appearances, and carefully managed narratives. When Charles and Camilla finally married in 2005, following Diana's death and years of intense public scrutiny, Anne handled the moment the way she usually handles difficult situations, quietly, professionally, and without creating a public spectacle. She gave no interviews and avoided doing anything that would fuel headlines. Even so, those watching closely felt she was never especially warm about the situation. The tension was never obvious or dramatic, but it seemed to linger beneath the surface. Part of that distance appeared to be based as much on principle as on personal history. Anne has always believed royal life comes with responsibilities that cannot be negotiated. In her view, you show up, do the work, serve the institution, and never expect praise in return. That has always been her approach. Camilla's journey into the royal family followed a very different path, shaped by years of public controversy before gradually gaining wider acceptance. Anne appeared to respect the work Camilla later put into her royal role without necessarily closing the personal distance between them. Royal watchers also noticed that after Camilla became queen, Anne did not curtsy to her. Whether that reflected protocol, personal history, or something else entirely is known only to Anne, but it certainly drew attention. What stands out most is that Anne has never allowed private feelings to interfere with her public responsibilities. That is one of the qualities that makes her so well suited to the role Charles has now entrusted to her. She can disagree privately, keep her emotions under control, and still carry out her duties without creating difficulties for the institution. That is a rare quality. Charles trusts her not only because she is loyal, but because she possesses a level of discipline that goes far beyond simply following rules. She understands what is at stake for the monarchy itself and has spent a lifetime committed to protecting it, even when that commitment has come at a personal cost. Rather than an open rivalry, the relationship between Anne and Camilla has long been defined by two women with very different histories and views who have both accepted that protecting the monarchy comes before personal differences. In public, they remain courteous, composed, and professional. Behind palace doors, most accounts suggest the relationship is more nuanced than the tabloids often claim. There is no constant feud or struggle for influence, only a mutual understanding that they serve the same crown, and that the institution must come first. Camilla's path to public acceptance has been far from easy. When she entered public life as Charles's partner and later his wife, many people across Britain struggled to accept her. Diana's legacy overshadowed everything, and years of difficult headlines, along with public perceptions surrounding Charles's first marriage, continued to follow Camilla into her new role. Over time, she focused on consistent charity work, built long-term relationships with organizations, supported causes that rarely generated major headlines, and gradually reshaped public opinion. That steady approach has made a noticeable difference, and her public approval is stronger today than it was years ago. Even so, complete acceptance has remained out of reach for some. What the palace appears to recognize now is that the future of the monarchy will not depend on perfection or erasing every complicated chapter from its past. Instead, it depends on the people who continue showing up and carrying out their responsibilities. Right now, that picture includes Anne playing a central role, Sir Timothy quietly receiving recognition for his loyalty, Camilla continuing to strengthen her public record, and Charles balancing royal duties while managing his health during a challenging period for the monarchy. The Princess Royal Regent title may be the clearest symbol of that shift, but it is only one part of a much larger story. The BBC documentary broadcast on Boxing Day 2023 offered viewers an unusually personal look at the transition into Charles's reign, revealing a more human side of the process than many expected. Charles III, the coronation year followed Charles and Camilla through their first year as monarchs, beginning after Queen Elizabeth II's death, continuing through the coronation and into the months that followed. Written by Robert Hardman and narrated by Helena Bonham Carter, the documentary maintained a warm tone without becoming overly sentimental. The most memorable parts of the documentary were not the grand ceremonial scenes that everyone had already watched. Instead, it was the small, unscripted moments that stood out. Charles and Camilla laughed with their staff during rehearsals, the Archbishop of Canterbury briefly forgot part of a prayer, and everyone around him tried to hide their reactions. Prince William even joked with his father about his hands while Charles struggled with his ceremonial robe. Those were not the kinds of moments that usually appear in carefully planned royal productions. They felt natural, showing family members and staff interacting in ways that suggested they had briefly forgotten the cameras were there. Anne's appearance became one of the documentary's most heartfelt moments. She recalled watching the imperial state crown being removed from Queen Elizabeth II's coffin during the funeral and said she felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The grief was still there, but so was the feeling that her mother's lifetime of duty had finally come to an end. She also shared that Queen Elizabeth had worried about dying at Balmoral because she feared it would create logistical problems for everyone else. Anne said she encouraged her mother not to let those concerns determine where she spent her final days. That small detail revealed a great deal about both women. Even near the end of her life, the Queen was thinking about how her passing might affect others, while Anne was reminding her to put those worries aside. The documentary was generally well received, although it also drew hundreds of complaints from viewers who believed it felt more like a public relations project than an independent documentary. That criticism has some basis. The film avoided topics such as Harry, Andrew, the coronation protests, and other controversial issues involving the royal family. Critics argued it presented a carefully managed version of events rather than a fully balanced account. Even so, the documentary still offered something worthwhile. Within its limits, it captured a family adjusting after the loss of Queen Elizabeth while preparing for one of the most closely watched royal events in modern British history. The nerves, the humour, and the exhaustion all felt genuine. For viewers willing to accept it on those terms, rather than expecting investigative journalism, it painted a revealing picture of a monarchy going through a major transition and relying heavily on a small group of people to keep everything steady. More than anything else, this period has shown how King Charles is trying to guide the monarchy through one of its most challenging chapters while openly managing his cancer diagnosis. That level of openness would have been almost unthinkable for earlier British monarchs. At the same time, Catherine has approached her own health journey with a similar honesty, giving the public a rare glimpse into the personal realities faced by senior members of the royal family. Meanwhile, Anne has continued doing exactly what she has done for decades. She quietly accepts whatever responsibility is placed before her and carries it out without seeking praise or attention. That is one of the biggest reasons the Princess Royal Regent designation matters. Its importance goes beyond the constitutional role itself. It also sends a clear message about where King Charles places his deepest trust and how he views the future stability of the monarchy. A monarch does not prepare a role like this unless there is at least a possibility that it may one day be needed. Charles is not acting out of fear or trying to create unnecessary drama. Instead, he appears to be making practical decisions designed to protect the institution if circumstances ever require someone else to temporarily step into greater responsibility. Rather than pretending everything is perfect, he has acknowledged reality and planned accordingly. By placing that responsibility in Anne's hands, Charles is recognizing a lifetime of commitment. She has earned his confidence through decades of steady service that very few people could have maintained. Long before this latest chapter, Anne had already built a remarkable record. She competed in the 1976 Montreal Olympics as an equestrian, becoming the first British royal to compete at that level. She also survived a kidnapping attempt in 1974 and famously responded to her attacker by saying, "Not bloody likely," a moment that has become part of royal history because it perfectly reflected her determination and composure under pressure. Away from those dramatic moments, Anne also made personal decisions that reflected her priorities. She and her first husband chose not to give their children, Peter and Zara, royal titles, allowing them to grow up with greater independence than many expected. Throughout the years, she has continued supporting charities, attending engagements that rarely receive media attention, and carrying out thousands of official duties simply because she believes they are part of the job. She has never appeared interested in applause. She has simply continued serving. The gold stick-in-waiting role at Charles's coronation was already a public sign of the king's confidence in his sister. This latest designation takes that confidence even further. It shows that when Charles thinks about the future, Anne remains one of the first people he depends on. That level of trust is not built overnight. It is earned through years of reliability, consistency, and putting duty ahead of personal recognition. Looking at the royal family today, it is clear the working monarchy is smaller than it was only a few years ago. The demands on those who remain have only increased. Yet there is also a sense that the institution has become more open about its challenges than many people expected. Not every detail is shared publicly, but the image of effortless perfection has become much harder to maintain. Real-life events have replaced carefully controlled appearances in ways that would have been difficult to imagine in previous generations. When a reigning monarch continues carrying out duties while receiving treatment, when the Princess of Wales speaks publicly about her own health, and when one of the king's closest relatives is trusted with greater constitutional responsibility, it reminds people that even the royal family must adapt to changing circumstances. That may actually strengthen the institution over time, because people often relate more easily to honesty than to perfection. Whether these changes will ultimately secure the monarchy's future remains impossible to predict. The royal family has survived enormous challenges before, and history suggests it has often adapted when circumstances demanded it. The coming years will reveal whether this new approach proves just as resilient. What do you think about King Charles placing so much trust in Princess Anne? Was this the right decision, or do you see it differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below because we'd love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next deep dive into the biggest royal stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.